Single player has never been Battlefield's forte. Sure, the Bad Company games offered a decent, if unremarkable, solo campaign, but the franchise is, and always has been, famous for multiplayer. Regardless, developer DICE has always provided a single-player outing with each version of Battlefield that comes along. And with Battlefield 1, it introduced the emotional and finely crafted war stories. Now, with Battlefield 5, the war stories are back, and I think the creator has finally cracked single-player. There are 5 war stories due for Battlefield 5. Well, that's actually a bit of a fib. The first of these, the Prologue, is more like an interactive montage where you play out all the themes and emotional messages of the game. You flip from one soldier to the next as they fail in combat, their deaths abrupt and uncelebrated, and the narrative paints an increasingly sombre, unwinnable picture of World War II. So, if you don't count the Prologue, that only lasts about 10 minutes, then there are 4 war stories in the game. These are Norlys, Under No Flag, Tiriller, and finally, The Last Tiger, which is due for release in December as part of a free download for everyone. Each one offers a very distinct flavour of World War II. To say you've never played anything like this before is too generous a statement, but they do offer tried and tested World War II shooter action in settings and scenarios that feel very different to other games you've played previously. The first of the war stories, although you can play them in any order, is Norlys, which you've seen footage from in previous Battlefield 5 trailers. You play as Solveig, a Norwegian resistance fighter who is infiltrating a heavy water plant to rescue her mother. And blow the place up. Set inside a snowy, mountainous region of Norway, the first story is literally chilling and dark. Classic Battlefield violence mixes with stealth and a handful of handsome cutscenes, all set against the glistening snow and the glow of the Aurora Borealis. The mission itself is multi-part and classic wargaming fare. Go here, blow this up, escape, kill more Germans, etc, etc. But there are multiple ways to do it all. You can choose to stealth or go in all guns blazing, thanks to the wealth of routes and choke points on the map. There are even vehicles to drive, and plenty of weapon caches to loot if you fancy a different loadout. Nothing revolutionary then, but it's an extremely polished and well-produced story. It could easily last a couple of hours as well, if you take it slowly, and the core relationship triangle between Solveig, her mother, and the German officer who is overseeing the enemy operation is an interesting one. There's also a brilliant orchestral score. The enemies are smart, the action is well paced, and my goodness, it's almost like DICE has nailed the Battlefield single player experience. If there was about 10 to 15 hours of war stories like this included in a single player package with an overarching story, you'd play it and say, yeah, that was a great story shooter. I'm glad I paid $50 for it. Sadly, the fact that there are only 4 war stories means it falls short on value as a purely single player outing. But, you know, there's a class-leading multiplayer game in there too, so...
You're the one who's gonna got himself shot full of holes, ain't ya?
Yeah, because of you tit.
Listen, I was sitting pretty in prison, mate. I was not bothering nobody and not getting shot at till you come along. This is your fucking fault.
Listen to me! You took the fucking deal.
The second stage I play is Under No Flag, and while it tries hard to capture the spirit of the Bad Company games, it falls slightly short. The action is thrilling. You play as Billy Bridger, an ex-con turned specialist boat service soldier who is tasked with infiltrating an airfield to blow up the planes. The story features some awful Cockney banter though, clearly designed for and by people with no understanding of British regional dialects, and it sort of renders all the characters instantly dislikable. But again, the action is great, a neat blend of stealth and all-out warfare with World War II weapons that pack a genuine punch. Finally, I play Tiriller, which focuses on the French conscript Dime Cisse, fighting for his country in the south of France. Except Dime is a colonial soldier who has never actually visited France before, and is now being asked to fight and die for a nation that treats him like a second-class citizen. With manpower short, however, and the situation desperate, Dime forces his superiors to let him fight. The rest of the stage is wonderfully chaotic warfare, and easily the best of the war stories I played. Dime charges into an artillery bombardment and forces his way up a hill filled with machine gun nests, trenches, and guns that can obliterate him with a single, hellishly aimed shell. There's a real sense of confusion in this stage, and the ability to climb up the hill in any way you can feels like a deliberate open world game design, and more like a glimpse of how the war might actually have been fought. Slightly more disappointing is the siege style scrap at the top of the hill, but Dimi is an interesting character nonetheless, and his story feels wonderfully unique in a near endless sea of World War II shooters. Overall, the Battlefield 5 war stories seem to succeed more than they fail. The action itself, in each of them, is consistently brilliant. It's just the storytelling itself that occasionally falters. I don't doubt that both Under No Flag and Tyriller have plenty more emotional moments to reveal during the course of their narratives, and if the endings are as poignant as the one that concludes Norley's, well, they'll certainly stick with you for days after you finish them. They're proof that Battlefield is finally ready to be taken seriously as a solo player shooter, even if the bulk of this outing is still rightly focused on multiplayer.